Welcome to the Obsolete Scrutiny. I'm your host, Johnny Powell. One question I've always wondered is, can video games be considered art? In this video, I'm going to be talking about Crash Bandicoot for the PlayStation. Some might ask, why talk about a game designed for children, and one that's almost 20 years old at that? Well, to start off with, I think this is a game that can appeal to both adults and children, to experienced gamers and to new gamers. Secondly, it may just be a game, but to me, it represents the idea of craft, something that was made by people who cared about what they were making. A well-made cup of tea can be just as fulfilling under the right circumstances as a 3-course meal at a luxury restaurant. A well-made video game can be just as inspiring as a novel, a painting, or a great movie. There are some people who argue that a blank canvas can be art, because it challenges what art is. Well, each to their own, but by this definition, almost anything can constitute as art. To me, a true piece of art should stand the test of time. That doesn't mean that it can't obviously look like it's from a certain time period, just so long as it's still nice to look at. For example, a lot of older animation was made to such high quality that it still looks good today, and some people prefer it to modern CGI animation. So, how about games? Well, look at Bubsy 3D for an example. This game came out in 1996, the same year as Crash Bandicoot, and it looks awful. Am I on an alien planet, or a massive green chessboard with walls made of blue pleather or something? I can't tell, and I shouldn't have to use my imagination here. 3D video games like this one are meant to be visual mediums. I'm not reading a book. Now, I am aware that this game is infamously bad, so let's be fair and look at a more well-received game from the same time period. Croc, Legend of the Gobos, or Gobos. Now, I do like this game, but although it doesn't look bad, I think we can all agree that compared to more modern platforming titles, it does look a little dated. Can Croc be considered art? Maybe. It is dated, but that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy looking at it. So when you pick up a game like Crash Bandicoot from 1996 and put it in your PlayStation, you would expect the same thing, right? Not bad, but dated. No, I really don't think so. I would go as far as to argue that this game is pretty timeless. Now, I know why that is, at least partially. The game's creators, Andy Gavin and Jason Rubin, created the concepts for most of the characters in the game, but they did employ professional Hollywood artists to help design them. These artists were really talented, and their work made the game stand out visually. The style they were going for was akin to the classic Looney Tunes style, the cartoony look suiting the game perfectly, and the way these characters were animated was fairly fluid, very different to the clunky and rigid animation from other games of the time. So, the star of the game, of course, is Crash Bandicoot. There's no way around that he's the staple of the game. He's what we're looking at, to some extent or another, during every single moment of gameplay. If we look at Crash, his design is pretty unique. Admittedly, not all of that is down to the game designers or artists. Some is down to the graphics. His shorts and gloves were changed a lot, so that they'd look good on screen and make his running animations look fluid. The reason Crash has such a big face is to make portraying emotion easier. If his face was too small, it wouldn't be possible to see his expressions with the graphics and screen resolutions of the time. So overall, his design is a mixture of form and function. Did this result in a good-looking main character? Well, I think so. I acknowledge that this design process involved compromise, but the game designers and artists wanted their work to look good, and they could hardly make a good game if it looked a mess on screen. I don't think that compromise means that Crash Bandicoot can be disqualified from being considered art. After all, every artistic process involves compromise in some way or another. Other than Crash Bandicoot, we also have a wealth of other characters and levels with detailed backgrounds to look at as well. A lot of effort was put into the way these levels look, and like the character design, helps the game avoid looking dated. The game begins here, where Crash is washed up on this beach. Right from the beginning you get a taste of the amount of visual detail you'll see in this game. Look at the jungle here. Each side of the path is jam-packed with beautiful detail. If you look at the concept artwork for the game, they managed to transfer this overgrown, slightly wacky looking jungle into the game very successfully. For another example of the attention to detail in the levels, look at this little patch of withered jungle before Cortex's factory. They could have just started the level inside here, but no, and this detail adds to the experience. My only moan here is that this level is actually the second level into Cortex's base. So the grand entrance to Cortex's base is actually when you're already inside, which makes no sense. I suppose they swapped two levels around because one was easier than the other. All these visuals are complemented by the game's soundtrack. This is full of catchy melodies that suit the levels and ambient sounds that complement the environments. The game makes full use of the visuals and audio score to create a world that we can immerse ourselves in as gamers, and that is arguably artistic. The concept artwork for the game makes the transition onto screen with a lot of success. Take Cortex's castle for an example. It's very unique and fun to look at. It's the perfect warped and crazy castle for the mad scientist, Dr. Neo Cortex. The creators also put a lot of work into the environments, both interior and exterior, and this really shows in the finished game. When you start the game, there's no text or audio instructions. Nobody's telling you to press X to do this or triangle to do that. Unless you study the instruction manual, you work everything out for yourself. This adds to the sense of achievement that you get from playing the game and doesn't break up the gameplay, so you're really immersed in the world of the game. Compare that to Bubsy 3D, where you're constantly reminded you're playing a primitive video game and Bubsy's voice breaks up the gameplay.
So, you wanna be a video game star? For starters, grab all the items you see. There's plenty of them in each level, and if you get enough of them, you'll be in for some surprises.
The game's co-creator, Andy Gavin, has said, "Creating worlds and stories has always been one of my great passions. I've been doing it my entire life, and Crash Bandicoot allows the player to immerse themselves in a detailed and atmospheric virtual world." Of course, Crash Bandicoot was made to sell and make money, but the fact is the game's creators didn't just want to make money, they also wanted to make a great game. They also had a great argument with a marketing lady over the name of the game and protagonist. She wanted to call Crash Ozzy the Otzel or Wuzzy the Wombat, whereas they fought and won for him to be called Crash Bandicoot. To me, this contrasts nicely with the example I always remember of the film Spider-Man. People have argued that this film can't be considered art because the filmmakers cut parts out of the movie in order to lower the film's age rating and therefore make more money. The argument is, how can something that is so obviously done for profit be considered art? Well, that's a whole different argument, but in the case of Crash Bandicoot, it's clear that the game's creators were willing to fight to make the game the way they wanted it to be, and it strengthens the argument that this game can be considered art. Now, don't get me wrong, this game isn't perfect. The levels could probably do with more variety, because generally speaking, the theme for every level is used twice. I don't mind this, but it's a shame in my eyes there weren't a couple more themes, especially with the potential for absolutely stunning vistas that's presented high up in Cortex's castle. And also, there are a few gameplay problems. The save feature on this game can be a bit of a pain. You have to collect tokens and then do a bonus round, and if you fail the bonus round you can't save, so you have to start the level again, collect the tokens again and have another go at the bonus level, and that is a bit of a pain. But to be honest, these flaws aren't bad enough, nowhere near bad enough, to disqualify this game, in my opinion, from being considered artwork. So, is Crash Bandicoot art? Well, for all the praise I've given the game and its designers, I don't think they ever thought about the game as artwork when they were making it. It's important not to forget that this is a product designed to make money, but I do know they were trying to make the best game they could, and their dedication, attention to detail and craftsmanship certainly comes through in the final product. So for my money, the artistic merit of this game almost comes as a side effect to the hard work, love and dedication put into it. If a blank sheet of paper constitutes as art, then this game certainly does too. It will give the player hours of enjoyment and is a great example of a classic platformer. You can buy it cheap on the PlayStation Network, so why not give it a try if you've not played it before? As for my conclusion, I would say that overall, Crash Bandicoot gives the most important thing that a piece of art can give to its audience: enjoyment, entertainment and inspiration. I'm Johnny Powell, I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for watching. Goodbye everybody.